What a great pleasure it always is to see our next filmmaker join us. He makes some of the most compelling documentary films that I have ever come across.
Yes, and I always like to say Academy Award winner because I can. John Zaritsky is joining us now. He's the director of Do You Really Want to Know? John, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Fiona. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I like that you two match.
I know
by
we
the
did.
way,
We phoned
today.
each other this morning.
Thanks for making me feel like an outsider.
Tell us about Do You Really Want to Know?
Well, Do You Really Not Want to Know is about genetic testing for Huntington's disease, which is a fatal motor neuron disease. But in the final stages, it also attacks the brain, so that people have symptoms of not only ALS or Lou Gehrig's, but Alzheimer's and schizophrenia all at the same time.
All at the same time.
Right.
And we are introduced to people who have Huntington's disease, and it is quite literally a death sentence.
It is.
But the genetic factor of this disease is what's so fascinating in how it's passed down. Maybe explain that aspect of Huntington's.
Well,
and how you cover it.
If you're at risk for Huntington's, meaning if one of your parents died of Huntington's, there's a 50-50 chance you will have the gene. If you have the gene, there's no treatment, no
yeah.
cure.
There's no maybe.
There's no maybe about it either. You'll die from Huntington's. So it's a genetic death sentence, in effect.
And John, the thing I always love about your documentaries is that they always, you know, they're not necessarily happy topics, but they make me think so much. And it had me thinking what I want to know, and looking at these families and what they're faced with. What was it like for you delving into their lives and that question that they were faced with? Do they want to know whether they have this death sentence or not?
Well, you know, it was, for me, a fascinating sort of adventure with all three families, because I myself was constantly asking myself,
Would you want to?
would I?
Yeah.
If
Would
I were
you?
in the same position. I came away finally after listening to people who didn't want to be tested, why they felt, you know, they couldn't face that kind of news and how it would wreck their lives, to people who argued for testing because they could plan their lives accordingly and plan for a future,
yeah.
even if it meant a bad death in 10
Yeah.
or 15 years, you could at least live with that knowledge, you know. And after going back and forth, you know, I think it's such an agonizing question. I'd like to dodge it.
I would love to dodge
Very, very diplomatic answer.
John, this is
I'm
something
sounding like a politician
You
now, you know.
so did. You had me going.
But not just with Huntington's. I mean, the world in which we live and genetic testing and the ability to find genetic markers and predisposition to different diseases is accelerating. And it started with Huntington's. It's one of the first that
They were the pioneers.
had certain, you know, with certainty genetic testing. But this is going to start happening more and more with certain cancers, with all these different things. So this is a question that people are really going to be faced with more and more in our society. Do you want to know?
Increasingly. In my own case, I have a history of Alzheimer's in my family, so I could be tested for the Alzheimer's gene. But unlike the test with Huntington's, which is definitive, if you have the gene, you'll get Huntington's. With the Alzheimer's test, it's only predictive, and it says you're more likely to get Alzheimer's if
Right.
you have the gene.
Not definitely.
But you're not guaranteed that you'll get Alzheimer's. So in my case, I've resisted being tested because I don't think my life will be improved any by the knowledge
maybe.
that I might.
Yeah.
I'm more likely anyway. I know that already.
Yeah.
Do I really need to know, oh, you're more likely
fascinating
to have it?
aspect of what you just said, though, in the film. The people that choose to get tested, when they find out the results, it obviously changes their life. It changes their fate. It changes their understanding of where they're going. And not always in a negative way if the test is positive. There's a couple of instances in this where that positive result is very empowering for people and their ability to wrap their heads around what's coming up.
Yeah, no, I think there is a whole positive side to being tested, and good reasons for young people especially to get tested, not only for the personal planning of their own lives and whatever, but also they have a 50% chance of passing it on to any children that you might have. And as we showing the film with one couple who husband was positive for the gene. They thought they wouldn't have any children, but they discovered a technique called pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, whereby fertilized embryos are tested for the gene.
And you can sort positive
kids.
versus
And they were able to
Yeah.
have 2 healthy twins that will not get Huntington.
Huntington ends
it
there.
means the end.
And we've just been looking at some footage here of someone
that
who,
gentleman?
yeah, you study in the film and follow along, and it's amazing to see how the families come together, because you are going to be caring for this person. What was that part like for you, meeting the families and learning how these people coped and survived to care for their loved ones?
You know, I had 3 families in the film, 2 of whom were strongly in favor of testing and went and got tested, and a large Irish-American family, all of whom didn't want to be tested.
I like the Irish
except
attitude.
For one exception.
Yeah.
Always one exception.
Yeah.
In any
An Irish-American family, absolutely.
But in any event, after being involved with their experiences on either side of it, but their family experiences of death with their mothers or death of their brothers, you know, you just can't help but feel that, you know, more has to be done in terms of research and...
You roll the film out in a really interesting way, and I was talking to you about this before, because that footage that we saw of the gentleman who's running around the park, he's exercising, you show that before you explain, and we really get to know who he is, which is a very accomplished doctor and scientist and researcher. And all you see at the beginning is someone who's struggling so much physically that it makes you uncomfortable until you get to know him. And that's a really interesting choice.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way for our audience to overcome what are natural kinds of prejudices and feelings towards people who have full-blown Huntington's. Because in the old days, they used to be known as the sort of village idiots because of their dance-like movements.
Yeah, they couldn't control their
There's one scene where he's outside the hospital where he works, and he's mistaken for a homeless person, and that happens on a regular basis. Is that why you choose to do subjects like this for your documentaries, so that diseases like Huntington's are understood?
Absolutely. I mean, I hope a film like this helps, you know, more and more people understand Huntington's and the need to support.
Yeah. But it goes outside that too. I mean, that's what I love about what you do is it's bigger than that. You know, it is about prejudice. It is about making judgments. It is about, you know, what we think we understand versus what is actual sort of in the world. Those are the things. You carried this idea around for this film for how long? For a decade before you made it?
10 years.
10 years. How did you first hear
10 years
about it?
ago, nobody thought it was a very good idea. And so I put it in what I call the graveyard of broken dreams.
Back here.
No, it's a big file on my computer. And after I finished Leave Them Laughing, I was digging around looking for a new project and came up with this old idea and dug it out. And fortunately, Knowledge Network decided that maybe an old idea from an old director might not be such a bad idea after all.
Well, John, as always, it's a great film. Do You Really Want to Know airs on the Knowledge Network November the 13th on TV Ontario. In early 2013, the documentary is also going to be presented at parts of the Huntington Society of Canada's annual conference that they're having November the 9th in Toronto, and screened at the Okanagan Film Festival October the 12th, and last but not least at the Gig Harbor Film Festival in Washington State October 19th.
John, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for creating your documentaries and for us allowing us a chance to see it as well.
My
It's a real
pleasure. Thank you.
It's awesome. We're going to take a break, come back with more right after this. Stick around.